I'd like to call to order this March 18th, 2019 meeting of the West Windsor Township Council. Yay, have we been adequately noticed?
Yes, on January 11th, 2019, to the Times and the Princeton Packet.
Would you all join us in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's all yours.
Thank you.
Nothing to do with it unless it's a conflict, all right?
Yay, will you call the roll?
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Before we get to public comment, I'd like everyone to join me in a moment of silence for the victims in New Zealand. Every time something horrible like this happens, it diminishes us all. An attack against people because they're a member of a group is an attack against us all because we are all members of some group or other. So please join me as we think about how we can make this never happen again. Thank you. Public comment.
Sanji?
Now, remember, this is on anything but the ordinances up for a public hearing.
Yes.
There'll be time to speak about those.
Hey, Sanjeev Rajaram, 5 Rushton Court, that's in West Windsor. So, good evening, West Windsor. I stand before you today, Council, requesting that you vote yes to help feed the police dogs. Our West Windsor police are the heroes of justice defending our town, and a police dog is considered an officer, not chattel. To deny this part of the budget is like denying an officer of his or her payment. After the terrible events in New Zealand, it was the police and the bomb-detecting dogs that were first responders to our mosque, and they have been presently defending it. In this state, we have an opioid crisis where tens of thousands of young ones like me die every day. If this vote is denied, I myself will pick up the sum of the bill and donate to feeding these dogs. Residents in our town are willing to pick up the bill. Mr. Scott Lee will start a fund at his Village Pantry Deli if, unfortunately, the vote is denied. I can't just emphasize how important that is, how important these dogs are. Whatever money needs to be spent, spend it anyway, but please, please help our police and help our police dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else signed up? Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Church.
Thank you. John Church, 11 Princeton Place. Just one thing I wanted to discuss. We've talked about Mercer County taxes at the budget meetings, and I don't know how many of you are aware, but there is a Mercer County website at mercercounty.org, and they give the agendas of all the meetings and the resolutions that were passed and that are up for passage, and some of these do affect West Windsor. So I would urge all council members and the mayor to access this site as often as possible and keep up to date on what the county is doing. Now there is one message that just appeared on the county website, which if you will indulge me, I will read. Mercer County has been asked whether the commercial airline operating at Trenton Mercer Airport utilizes any Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft, which have recently been banned by the Federal Aviation Administration due to mechanical issues. The commercial carrier at Trenton Mercer Airport does not have that aircraft in its fleet, and the airport is not directly affected by the federally imposed grounding of the Boeing 737 MAX 8, just for everyone's information. So,
Thank you. I
okay.
think that's very reassuring
Yes,
for
it-
everyone
yeah,
to hear.
Okay. So that's all I have for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Andy Bromberg, 24 Providence Drive. I don't know if this is appropriate tonight, I'm I fully agree with feeding the police dog, and I think that's a good addition to the police department. But I'm raising to the council, the school board, and the mayor, and to a lesser degree, I'm not including the police department in this discussion because I feel we have a great, great police department, the way it was before the Class 3 officer idea was introduced into our school system. In the old administration, the Republican side of the fence always said that we have to watch about reduced budget, reduced taxes, and watch. Why aren't we doing that now? Is the Class 3 program an effective use of our taxpayer dollars? I already heard that there was 2 controversial events with Class 3 officers, one with a bathroom incident, and the second one now with a dog walking on the street. I'm not sure what the Class 3 officers do during the day if they're actually not allowed, and not supposed to really interact. I saw something that was beautiful by the police department. They had some police officers go into the class and make all the kids appreciate our police force. And those are great programs, but that's not the Class 3 program. What do and when we were discussing this, there was 80% of the people were kind of questioning it, very intelligent people about studies, about the lack of effectiveness of these type of programs. Is there a way that we could get something on the ballot, or just to have the people help out with this decision? Again, I'm a very big supporter of the police department. I have a grandson in this town still. I intend to stay here for as long as I live, or as long as possible, let's say. As a community, how do we question the Class 3 police program effectiveness? And that's my comment.
Thank you. Anyone else? I remind you, this is not a dialogue.
Okay. Mark Pepper, 43 Providence Court. I just have 2 things really quickly. I want to mention that the Capitol Philharmonic's upcoming concert is May 4th at the War Memorial Patriots Theater. It's a celebration of youth. I expect there'll be many musicians from West Windsor Township, the public schools, whatever, will be performing alongside the professional musicians of the orchestra. There'll be at least 30 youth performing with the orchestra on May 4th. So I encourage the people of West Windsor to buy tickets and attend the concert. My other thing I'd like to announce is I was at this, I attended the Appropriations Committee of the State Assembly, where they discussed Andrew Zwicker's Assembly Bill 1524, which is requires disclosure by independent expenditure committees, raises certain campaign contribution limits, repeals the ban on certain intra-party fund transfers. Senate Bill 1500 was already approved unanimously by the Senate a few weeks ago. This is New Jersey's version of the American Anti-Corruption Act, promoted by the group Represent Us. Here in this chamber about 2 years ago, we were one of the first towns in New Jersey to approve this. We passed a resolution. Some people here said, what's the point of doing it? Well, today shows why we did it here, because we have been generating a grassroots support across the state to push for this type of legislation to limit dark money in our election and to save our democracy, which is under serious attack right now because of large sums of money donated by undisclosed individuals. Thank you, and congratulations to those of you who helped us pass that resolution, especially Allison and Aisha, who worked together with myself, David Goodman from Represent Us, and other members of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else? Seeing none, administration comments?
The only comments I have are as follows. Public Works crews are in Zone 3 collecting yard waste and debris. They'll be there from Monday, March 18th, which is today, through the end of the week. And then the other announcement concerns an advisory from Mercer County with respect to Princeton Heightstown Road, County Route 571 between Rabbit Hill Road and Old Trenton Road. Milling and resurfacing will occur this spring. The county expects to commence work on Monday, March 25th, and the anticipated completion date of that project is May 6, 2019, weather permitting. Construction would be completed on 2 lanes of the roadway at a time while maintaining 1 lane of traffic in each direction. Lane closures and construction is to occur between 9:00 a.m. and 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. Some Saturday work may be required to make up for weather delays if necessary, and the road will return to 4 lanes of traffic after 4:30 p.m. and at all other times. Delays are to be expected in the construction area during working hours. Please honor all temporary traffic control devices for your safety and the safety of others. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Hi, thank you very much. We have a long meeting and we have some professionals on clock, so I'll keep my comments brief. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone who celebrated. I want to join Alison in expressing my sadness in what happened in New Zealand. However, it demonstrated what's good about West Windsor. I want to commend the police chief and all the police officers for reaching out to the mosque leadership and assuring them that the police were not with them but rather in front of them. And I want to thank everyone who showed up at the vigil at mosque on Sunday. It showed the best that West Windsor has to offer. And finally, I'll just like to offer a couple of corrections about public comment that was made about Class 3 officer. This issue is being blown to death. The bathroom incidents again seems to be misrepresented again and again, either on purpose or out of ignorance, in spite of being told the truth. And then the second incident that was mentioned had nothing to do with Class 3 officer. The person involved was not a Class 3 officer. To bring it in, I understand people are opposed to Class 3 officer. However, to use incidences that are nothing to do with them or misrepresenting incidences to cast doubt on them is not good policy, it's not good governance, it's not good at all. So we can have an honest discussion and we can disagree about policies, we agree and disagree, but to drag everything to that issue is simply not unbecoming of a good governance discussion. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Council member comments. Virginia?
I have nothing this evening.
Aisha?
Nothing, thank you.
I would like to join the mayor in commending the police and the mosque for their leadership and in organizing the vigil, which had a good 500 people from mostly West Windsor there to mourn and to honor the victims. So we are now up to a number of public hearings. Gay?
Okay, 2019-02, an ordinance to amend and supplement the Code of the Township of West Windsor, 1999, Chapter 200 Land Use, Part 1, Site Plan Review, Article 2, Terminology, Section 200-4, Definitions, Subsection B, regarding the definition of congregate housing, and Part 4, Zoning, Article 27, use and bulk regulations for resident districts, Section 200-194, planned residential retirement community use regulations, subsection B2F, regarding maximum permissible density.
Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing. Anybody want to say anything? If nobody wants to say anything,
Ellen Gardner, 61 Coneflower Lane, West Windsor. I am a member of the Board of Trustees of the Village Grand Homeowners Association. The various residential developments under construction or to be constructed in the vicinity of Village Grand will impose intolerable burdens on vehicular traffic and safety considerations. Good planning dictates that well in advance of any township approvals, we address these issues because they will have a serious impact on the quality of life and the personal safety of a sizable senior population in town. Discussions with the township traffic experts and county officials regarding potential areas of egress on Old Trenton Road and not on Village Road East need to be pursued. Representatives of Village Grand need to be consulted and involved in the process. We should not wait for the planning board site plan hearings to address this crucial issue. The Wellness Center and the restaurant/cafe should be part of the community building or the congregate buildings and designed to serve primarily the residents of the development and not members of the general public. We look forward to your supporting the needs of the residents of Village Grand, enabling us to overcome the challenge of these new developments.
thank you. Just for everybody's information, the ordinance in question does not allow the restaurant, if there is one, to be open to the general public. It will be open only to the residents, guests, and employees of the congregate care that exists, what will be built, and the hamlet. People from the hamlet do not have to go on to Old Trenton Road or Village Road to access this.
But when you said in the ordinance, guests, you didn't say residents of guests. You just said guests. And that can be implied to be anyone, the general public. So if you don't say they have to be guests of residents, then that means it's open to everyone.
Ann?
Ann Hittner, 23 Honeyflower Lane. This is my third time coming here in regard to building at Bear Creek Assisted Living. We have had the same discussion and the same problem over and over again. The traffic is unbearable. It's worse now than it has ever been because Trenton Road is closed so that they can repair that small bridge. Everybody who drove Trenton Road now uses Village Road. You put trucks on there for construction, it's going to be a disaster. We have asked over and over again for help to avoid a critical situation where there's too much traffic, there are not enough places for people to go. We're all fighting to get to the same places. I came out of Southfield Lane the other day, trying to make a left turn onto Village Road. There was so much traffic that I stood there for 10 minutes waiting for a break in the traffic to make the turn. This is just unconscionable, and something has to be done before somebody gets killed or there's a massive accident. Now, I don't want to come again and ask again. I'd like to see something done now and not 2 years from now. I'm assuming that we're changing the ordinance because you have a developer interested. If that's correct, that developer needs to be talked to about a traffic light on Trenton Road and an exit from that piece of property onto Trenton Road so that all of the traffic does not come out onto Village Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Marvin Gardner, 61 Coneflower Lane. Okay, we're getting it closer. This ordinance has dire consequences for the community, and the issues it raises needs to be resolved well in advance of any site plan application. The PRRC is a residential zone, and we need to protect its status. The inclusion of a restaurant should require that it be an integral part of the congregate housing facility, and that the owners and operators be the same entity as the residential facility. There should be no exterior signage identifying it as a restaurant. It should not front on any public roadway. In the congregate section of the ordinance, where reference is made to who would utilize the restaurant, example, residents, guests, and employees, we should, after the word guests, add the words of residents, so it would read guests of residents and not imply the general public. In the cafe section of the ordinance, where reference is made that it be a small restaurant, there needs to be specificity, such as language that there be no more than X square feet. Otherwise, everyone's interpretation of what small means will differ. The Township traffic consultant and expert in public testimony regarding this specific site emphasized the significant negative impact each additional bedroom would have on the existential traffic congestion. Therefore, the language in the ordinance that the living unit shall have no more than 2 bedrooms permits a developer to build all the units with 2 bedrooms, which will create traffic chaos and safety concerns. Even the plan filed with the town in 1998 called for 82 of the 220 units to be 1 bedroom. You need to be specific in the ordinance with respect to the number of units that must be 1 bedroom, or at least a minimum of 1 bedroom units. The township is already exceeding the maximum permissible density substantially by carving out an exception for this development, circumventing the original intent of the ordinance, which granted the exception, but on only one condition, that the 220 units be for a congregate care facility. Congregate housing is quite different and is merely nomenclature for ordinary multi-unit housing. So why does the ordinance summary discuss units in excess of 220 with respect to the vacant land within the congregate care component of the PRRC district? Is there something more contemplated? Jerry, you want to answer that?
I think when, at the end of the public hearing,
Okay.
perhaps Jerry can address anything he feels has been left hanging.
Look in your summary, Jerry. It's in the summary.
When the public hearing is
Okay,
over.
so we'll get an answer on that, right?
Yes, when the public hearing. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this?
Gene O'Brien, 13 Green Drive, and Mr. Gardner's successor as chairman of the planning board. The planning board addressed this ordinance last Wednesday at its regular meeting. And in terms of the definition of congregate housing with specific reference to a restaurant and/or cafe, I would agree with Mr. Gardner's observation that it would be absolutely ironclad to add the words "of residents" following the word "guests." When the planning board reviewed this at its meeting, that was the impression that we had, that it was meant to be the guests of the three uses that are on those 2 blocks and the lots associated therewith. So I offer that for your consideration. And if it's deemed to be substantial by the attorney, you're going to introduce 2 more ordinances tonight, reintroduce them that the planning board's going to hear the 27th, so we could deal with this one too, if my observation to Mr. Gardner's suggestion is considered substantial. With regard to his comment about the term small restaurant, I would point out to the audience that the planning board discussed this term for about 5 minutes at its meeting, and our council president was in attendance. Mr. Burgess's, our planner's colleague, Mr. Novak, was at the meeting, and it was decided that we just could not define what the adjective small meant. And we thought market purposes, volume of business that the cafe would have would be significant to control this. So that's what happened with the planning board. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak at the public hearing? Then do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Hamilton?
Yep.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. I would like to ask our professionals to address the issues that came up.
I would agree with the comments by both Gene and Marvin about adding of residents after guests. I think it's a good idea. And Marvin, that's a good question you raise about the 25%. Originally, the thought was it was conceivable that more than 306 dwelling units would be constructed. But now we have an express limitation to 306. Given that, there's not going to be any more than that, and I think that language could be taken out.
Okay. So what I would like you to do then is outline the amendment. I gather that these are not substantial changes.
Correct.
Then if you would just, oh, good. 2 lawyers agree, then we know we have to be right. So. All right, so that doesn't necessarily hold. So Jerry, if you could just outline a quick amendment so that we can vote on that.
Yes, okay. First, under congregate housing on the first page, 4th line down, guests of residents. And then on page 2, under G, other provisions, the sentence beginning in the 6th line, a 25% set-aside of low and moderate income units shall apply to any units in excess of 220 in the development application. I think that could come out, given that we'd added that language about there can't be any more than 306 dwelling units. There are 86 in the existing buildings, there can't be more than 220 in the new buildings, and that's 306, so that's the limitation. Yes.
So then after, and section 200-237 will go straight to at least 50% of the affordable units.
Right, yeah, and just to follow up on what Mike said real quickly, if there wasn't this limitation, one could certainly take the position that that's substantial, but given that there is a limitation, the language is just what we would call surplusage, yeah.
Okay, so I think I need a motion to amend as outlined by our attorney.
I
make a-
move.
Second.
Eeny, meeny.
Virginia
I
moved.
move to approve with the amendments as noted.
I'll second.
Okay,
Hamilton?
that we're going to do this in one vote. Jerry, I want to do this absolutely
Yeah, I think
perfectly.
right, one-
Should we have two votes, one on the amendment and one to approve as amended, or should we have one vote?
I think one vote is sufficient. If somebody
One
I'm sorry, if somebody moves with the amendments.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Jerry?
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Now, Madam Chair, in the agenda, the next item is a mandatory set-aside ordinance. I would ask that that be placed last on the list of ordinances because it does have an impact on some of the other ordinances. It provides for a 25% set-aside. There, at least those the ordinances where the growth share has been changed, that's a 20% set-aside, so we don't want to have an ordinance first in place that says everything has to be 25%, and then we, right after that, adopt an ordinance that says 20%.
Okay, so we're going to turn the page and go to ordinance 2019-04.
2019-04, an ordinance amending the code of the Township of West Windsor, 1999, to create a R-5C district.
Now, there are some changes that are not substantial that were recommended by the planning board. Perhaps, Jerry, you can read them now?
Sure.
Unless you'd rather have Gay read them.
Either way, Gay, do you want to read them, or?
Go ahead.
Okay. On page 9 of the packet, section 3, we changed the date to read March 18th, 2019 instead of 2018. On page 2 of the ordinance, page 10 of the packet, 200-189.1 R5C, District Use Regulations B, we added, except that it shall not apply to the management and leasing office and clubhouse. On page 6 of the ordinance, which is page 14 of the council packet, 200-189.2 R5C, District Bulk Area and Other Regulations, Vehicular, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Circulation, Section 1 changed word to shallow and relettered as I, added Section J and K. J is a comprehensive bicycle and pedestrian plan shall be provided. Considerations shall be given to linking pedestrian and bicycle circulation features to adjoining open space amenities as determined to be appropriate and feasible. On page 7, page 15 of the packet, the treatment of any crosswalk shall be designated or be designed with materials that indicate the different traffic characteristics of intersecting streets. Page 11 of the ordinance 5 added telephone terminal boxes and cable TV boxes. Page 11, page 19 of the packet, that's what I just read. Page 11, section 8 in the packet was shown to be removed, and it is not. It's the section on snow removal. That's it for that one.
All right. Do we need to vote on anything? After the public hearing, we can vote on it as amended.
Correct.
Okay, so I'd like to open the public hearing for 2019-04. Anyone wishes to speak? Please come forward, young man.
Yan Mei Wang, 41 Montgomery Street. So this development is proposed to be about 600 units behind Lowe's near Duck Pond Park. And a shuttle was proposed to be servicing this development from the area to the train station if the occupancy is more than 50%. I want to give a brief fact about the street this development is located around. Along the Meadow Road and Bear Brook Road, when this development will be finished, we will be having around 2,300 households along this narrow, less than 2-mile street. down to the train station. So if this shuttle is in service, it will be greatly benefiting the 600 residents living there. It will greatly even benefit more of the whole society or the short whole Meadow Road and Bear Brook Road of less than 2 miles or 2,300 residents if this shuttle can be shared along with other nearby homeowner associations. So I probably propose that we could maybe amend the 50% starting service of the shuttle to consideration of joint shared shuttle service with nearby homeowner associations to the train station. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this? I see someone coming forward. Seeing no one, motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Mr. Mueller, would you like to comment on the comment we have just heard?
I think it's a very good idea. I don't think we can require by ordinance that the developer of this site have a shuttle which services other sites, but we can certainly reach out to the developer and suggest this. And my guess is, just a guess, that the developer would be interested in doing that. Probably that would entail shared costs, which would be more efficient for the developer as well. But I think it's a very good idea.
Thank you. So I hope, Ms. Wong, you have noticed that, and I'm sure you'll be around when this comes to the planning board to make sure that that is discussed at that time. Thank you. So do I have a motion to adopt as amended?
So moved. Second.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
2019-05, an ordinance amending the code of the Township of West Windsor, 1999, to create an R5D district.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to open the public hearing.
Do you want me to read the changes?
We should,
Okay, so on page 1 of the ordinance, the date, page 20 of our packet, the date was changed to March 18th, 2019. On page 3, we added pickleball and bocce courts shall be permitted, and 3D bicycle and pedestrian accessibility, a comprehensive bicycle and pedestrian circulation plan shall be provided. Consideration shall be given to linking pedestrian and bicycle circulation features to adjoining open space amenities as determined to be appropriate and feasible. 2, pedestrian crossings in streets and alleys shall include special ground texture treatment such as brick, stone, cobblestone, and other suitable material. The treatment of any crosswalk shall be designed with materials that indicate the different traffic characteristics of intersecting streets.
all right. Public hearing, anyone want to speak out on this one? Seeing none, can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Motion to adopt is amended.
So moved. Second.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next.
2019-06, an ordinance amending the code of the Township of West Windsor, 1999, to create a PMN-1 district. The changes, page 1, page 23 of the packet, add A before hotel and remove the S at the end of hotels. Page 2, change hotels to a hotel. Remove 5, affordable housing in accordance with subsection 1. This is a duplication. Page 4, K3, add 55 feet. Page 6, M2A, add the word "the" before hotels and add the word "the" before hotel and remove the S.
Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing on 2019-06. Seeing nobody moving forward eagerly to speak, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Manzara,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Do I have a motion to adopt as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Manzara,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're up to 2019-09.
An ordinance amending the redevelopment plan for Princeton Junction by modifying affordable housing requirements.
Okay.
There's no changes from the March 4th introduction by council.
So, anybody wish to testify at the public hearing for this one? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close? Oh!
Too slow.
I'm sorry, Gene O'Brien, 13 Green Drive, Planning Board Chair. Which ordinance are we addressing here?
2019-09.
I thought that was pulled.
7 and
No,
8
7 and 8 are
are the
pulled.
revised. Yep.
Motion to close?
Second.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Manzara,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion to adopt? Sorry.
That's okay.
Second.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Manzara,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
2019-10, an ordinance amending the code of the Township of West Windsor, 1999, by modifying affordable housing requirements in the RP-3, RP-7, and RP-10 districts. There were no changes from the introduction from March 4th.
Anyone wish to speak in the public hearing on this one? Seeing none, motion to close the public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
Roll-
Hamilton,
Yes.
Manzara,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Motion to adopt?
So moved?
Second.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Manzara,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
2019-11, Township of West Windsor, Mercer County, New Jersey, ordinance amending Chapter 200 Land Use, Article 23, Housing Trust Fund of the Code of West Windsor Township regarding the collection of development fees in support of affordable housing as permitted by the New Jersey Fair Housing Act. On page 4, number 5, change non to not, which is page 42 of our packet. Page 7 of the ordinance is recapture to recaptured, page 45, and page 10, section B, after the word compliance, add and repose. Section C, change the word judge to judgment, and add after the word compliance and repose.
Okay. Public hearing, anyone want to speak out on this one? Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
Roll call.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Motion to adopt as amended?
So moved?
Hey, Allison, do you want to do any of these?
Sure, I'll
You
sec-
take this one.
The chair will second.
Okay. Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Okay, 2019-12, Township of West Windsor, Mercer County, New Jersey, ordinance amending 200 land use, Article 31, general provisions and supplemental regulations governing certain uses of the Code of West Windsor Township to address the requirements of the Fair Share Housing Act and the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls, UHAC, regarding compliance with the township's affordable housing obligation. Jerry, you're on.
This actually has gone through multiple iterations and was reviewed by both Fair Share Housing Center, because we wanted to know if they had problems beforehand rather than afterwards, and by the special master, and both of them have signed off on this. In terms of the last draft that was introduced, the only changes are in the definition of administrative agent at 200-237.1B. It adds "and all units in inclusionary developments after affordable housing program." That means for all the inclusionary developments, the administrative agent is going to handle all the certifications, sales prices, rentals, et cetera. Then the other two are in 237.2, the lettering and numbering wasn't correct, so we corrected that. But we don't have for all of you the a track version. This is the only one we don't have a track version for, because of that, we just couldn't get it. And we had not drafted this in our office. It was drafted by Joe's office, and we just couldn't get it to work. But that's the second one. And then the third one is Allison and Linda Jeevers had suggested, before the planning board acted, that there was a requirement that all heating sources be the same for the affordable units as for the market units. They recommended that being expanded to include HVAC. We did that in the ordinance. The summary did not include that, so that now the summary includes that as well, HVAC rather than heating source.
Thank you. So do we have anyone who wants to testify in the public hearing on this one?
Gene O'Brien, 13 Green Drive. I'm looking at a memorandum from Mr. Burgess's office with many items, and I didn't hear them all presented in terms of changes. Jerry?
Yeah, most of them had already been included in the draft that was introduced.
Okay. What about a change in the name of the municipality? That was to have been a change.
Yeah, I mean, you don't think it's...
Page 11?
You don't think it's Montville?
I don't know what page it is in the,
Oh, okay, yeah.
in the council's document.
And what section is that?
It's on page 11 of the ordinance.
It's been changed to West Windsor.
And the item on page 26, just a typo with regard to Monmouth County Library
Yeah, that's been
headquarters.
reversed, and now says Monmouth County Library Headquarters.
I think we're covered. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
And I'll move to adopt this as amended.
Okay,
I
I'll
can't do
second
that. Okay.
You go.
Okay, I'll move to adopt.
Second.
Okay.
Roll call vote?
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Okay, now we're up to 2019-03.
Okay. 2019-03, an ordinance amending the code of the Township of West Windsor, 1999, to modify an affordable housing set-aside requirement. And there are no corrections. This was as introduced.
Does anybody want to testify on this? Seeing great enthusiasm for it as it is, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Okay. Now, that's not all we have to do, but thank you, everyone, for coming out for these important public hearings. We now turn to the consent agenda.
Minutes of February 4th, 2019, business session as amended, bills and claims.
Anybody want to pull anything?
The RP 12.
Seeing none, do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move to approve.
Second.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. All right. Recommendations from
I'm
administration.
sorry, Allison, I actually wanted to recommend an addition to the RP 12 ordinances, and you kind of got me.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we
Could
can
we go back? Could we go back to that possibly?
Sure, let's,
Okay. In sections C1, which is a long section dealing with multifamily dwellings,
no, this is,
the RP 12, and it's on both ordinances. That's ordinances,
Oh, the introduction. Do you want to move them forward
they're
on
not,
the
they're
agenda?
not numbered. I thought we already covered them in the consent agenda.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant going back to some, I thought you meant going back to something that we...
I thought it had already been covered, but my mistake.
No, we'll get to them pretty quickly.
Okay. Ready?
Yes.
So 2019 RO67, authorizing the second quarter 2019 emergency temporary appropriations, has to be removed this evening because there is not 2/3 of the full membership available. A special business session will occur on Monday, March 25th, 2019 at 7 p.m. for this action.
Okay.
Okay. 2019 R068, authorizing the reduction in performance guarantees for private on-site improvements for the project known as Enclave at Princeton Junction, PB 14-10AH. 2019 R069, authorizing the business administrator to purchase additional network bandwidth with Comcast Enterprise Services through January 21st, 2020, in the amount of $6,512 for a total not to exceed amount of $77,720. 2019 R070, authorizing the increase of $23,590 to SHI International under New Jersey State Contract M000389851 for the procurement of software for the Finance Division. 2019 R064, ratifying and affirming the 2018 expenditure of funds to Parker McKay for $132,283.86. 2019 R071, appropriation of funds for Parker McKay, PA, from January 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2019, for $65,000.
Does anyone want to remove anything from these recommendations? Hearing none, do I have a motion for R068 through 71?
So moved. Second.
Hamilton?
Yes?
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we are now up to the introduction of ordinances. Mr. Muller, you're on.
Yeah, just a couple of things with respect to both ordinances. Now, the two of them are parallel ordinances creating the RP12 district, which is the site behind the Ellsworth Shopping Center. One of them amends the code, the other amends the redevelopment plan, because we decided early on, when we were adopting ordinances for the redevelopment plan back in 2009, that we should put the same thing in the code, because otherwise they could kind of get lost if it's just in a separate redevelopment plan, which is somewhere. So we've been consistently doing that. A couple of things. Number one, I would ask that the following language be added at the end of section, and now I'm looking at the ordinance, 200-272A, 3A, which is a long section that starts,
Wait, you're in 07R or 08?
mine or not, it's the one, 07, okay.
Page
So one
2.
amending the code, Mike? Yep.
Okay.
There's a long paragraph that starts A, multifamily dwellings, et cetera. If we could add at the end of that, ordinance 2019-03 shall not apply, and that would be for both the ordinances, so one amending the code and the other amending the redevelopment plan. That's because we've just adopted an ordinance that says, basically, if you do rezonings in the future, it has to be 25%. And the intention all along, and the RP12 districts have been in the works for quite some time, is that it will only be 20%, as opposed to the 25% we've imposed upon the new sites because of the demolition and condemnation costs related. So we want to make sure we don't get hoisted on our own petard by adopting the mandatory set-aside ordinance, and then later on somebody saying, well, you adopted after that an ordinance that says 20%, how could you possibly do that? So that's one thing. Two other things. I know Allison had suggested that the council at least consider in the same paragraph, second sentence from the bottom, that it read, the affordable units shall be dispersed among the market units throughout the building or buildings. 2 points. I don't think you need that, but certainly there's no problem having that. And we expect it's going to be one building, but that's just conceptual at this point. If it's more than one building, that's why I put building or buildings. The last one is the last sentence. Affordable housing shall be architecturally indistinguishable from market rate housing. I think that's left over from a much earlier design where the idea was they were going to put the affordable units in one building, and we objected to that. But now that it's one apartment building, it doesn't really make much sense, because how can you architecturally distinguish the affordable units from the other units? They're all in the apartment building. So I don't think you need that last sentence, although it doesn't really do any harm.
I think it really doesn't do any harm, and although there would be no distinguished characteristics externally, I think this protects us from internal distinguishing characteristics.
And that's fine.
And I think we should leave this.
Okay.
At minimum, it will do no harm.
Sure, absolutely.
So, given Jerry's amendments, do we have a motion to introduce 2019-07R?
And that's just that last sentence that I've added?
Yes. Everything else had already been, but that does make sense. Thank you.
As amended.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
2019-08R, an ordinance amending the redevelopment plan for Princeton Junction by adding a new RP-12 district.
Motion to introduce as amended by Mr. Mueller.
So moved. Second.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Manzara?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Public hearing for these two ordinances will be April 1st, 2019.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Burgess, you guys can go home. We do have additional public comment.
I want you guys to just hear this. Marvin Gardner, 61 Coneflower Lane. We just learned through Gene that the planning board held a meeting to discuss this ordinance that you guys just approved with respect to the PRRC. We didn't get any notice whatsoever with respect to that ordinance being heard by the planning board, and I want the record to reflect that fact. Normally, even as a courtesy, the Board of Trustees of the Homeowners Association receive notice, and even those people within 200 feet receive notice. Am I correct?
Well, for review by the planning board on referral from council, that would not be the...
But there was no formal action taken? Wasn't there a vote?
Yeah, there was a vote to...
A vote with a
recommend approval.
recommendation. Don't you think it would have been appropriate that there be some notice given?
Well, I know there was at least Sam tells me that the website did have a notice about that planning board meeting, what was going to be the subject, but beyond that...
We normally get notice directly. We have somebody here who lives within 200 feet who got a notice to this meeting, but did not get a notice to the planning board meeting.
Right, yeah, it would
The
be...
board itself did not get any notice with respect to the planning board meeting. And quite frankly, in all deference to Gene pointed out to me that he wrote down a note to advise Village Grant in the future, and this was before I even walked over to him as a courtesy to tell him that, there was a concern here with respect to this. You heard the speakers. We want to work with the town. We want to work in advance of a site plan hearing, because at the site plan hearing, not every change is made, but if you talk privately, you talk with groups, you consult with the community, and you give everyone an opportunity, you'll resolve these issues without controversy, or a limited controversy at least.
So I have a question for Mike and Jerry then. Is this valid without the notice?
The notice is required when the planning board reviews the land use ordinance as part of a referral from the council to the planning board.
But did we vote on it, or we did something as a council meeting? Did they get notice of that on that Wednesday evening?
That was the introduction.
All of the ordinance.
That was the fair share and the fair share plan, the housing element and fair share plan, which...
Master plan matters which don't require
Okay, but these ordinances have required some form of notice?
These ordinances were all noticed by the clerk's office from a certified list from the land use for the meeting this evening, which is under my jurisdiction, has to be done.
So just to clarify,
Oops,
today's meeting is the only meeting that would have required notice?
Right, and we did get notice.
Yeah, I mean, there's
The
actually,
homeowners association got it, and also
Right.
people
I
within
mean-
200 feet.
right, I mean, there's an open question whether notice to everybody within 200 feet actually had to be given for the ordinances. There's a provision in the municipal land use law that says if there's a change in the boundary or classification of a district, certified mail notice has to be sent to everybody within 200 feet. An exception being if the changes are consistent with a general reexamination of the master plan. Now, that's a reexamination report. Of course, the master plan is a higher level document, and of course, all those changes were made in the master plan before this. So there was an open question whether we had to provide notice. We wanted to be particularly cautious here, so we did provide notice for the four sites that were, well, I guess it's five. It was the PMN 1, the R5C, the R5D, the RP12, and Bear Creek. Although for Bear Creek, there was even more of a question there because there really wasn't a change in the classification or boundaries, but we thought it was close enough that it made sense sending out those notices. So that's why we did that.
Well,
Again, may I reiterate, I'm not going to get involved in all the legal implications here. I'm just saying, as a courtesy, it's been done traditionally in this town, as you are aware. Every time there is something dealing with that PRC, there is at least notice given to the homeowners association, traditionally.
Okay, as you know, I'm not particularly in that loop, and I really am not aware of that, but I certainly accept that as face value. And I think,
I'm telling you
and I
that.
think the point is well taken. And I think it's a very good practice. I don't know.
Which is a good practice,
Yeah,
by
no,
the way.
absolutely.
It should not be changed.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's all I'm suggesting.
Okay. I wanted to mention one other thing about Bear Creek, because Marvin raised a question of extra bedrooms. There's a provision in the ordinance that's no more than 500 bedrooms. My understanding is that if you use the same number of 1- and 2-bedroom units in the approved project, and the developer tells us it's going to be exactly the same, and you add to that the bedrooms in the built buildings, it's just about 500 beds, which is a limitation in the ordinance provision. So I don't think we're going to be seeing more bedrooms than was approved back in the day.
So let me ask you a few questions since you raised it now. You got the 306. Am I correct? We're talking the 220 to get to the 306, and then you're talking those units in the assisted living. Let me take out the plan here. Am I correct?
I calculated.
They came up to 86, as I recall.
Well, there would be 82 in the new facility, assuming the same number of bedrooms, and we are told it would be the same number of bedrooms. There would be 82 one-bedroom, 138 two-bedroom, for a total of 368 beds in the new buildings. And I know Joe's office had done some work on the number of beds in the existing buildings, and that, when you added the 368 and the number of beds in the existing buildings, it came up to about 500.
Okay. So what are you suggesting, that at a minimum there'll be at least 82 one-bedroom units?
Yeah.
At a minimum?
Yeah. I mean, if they went beyond that, my understanding is, given all the numbers in the existing buildings and here, if they went over that, they'd be above the 500-bed cap. And they have told us they're going to have the same number of one-bedroom and two-bedrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is very interesting, and it is a good illustration of what should have happened at the planning board meeting. And I think, as a township, we will take that into consideration in the future.
Thank you. Thanks, Jean.
And is there any other additional public comment on any topic whatsoever? Seeing none, council reports. Aisha.
No report.
Virginia.
Okay, so the West Windsor Recreation summer program was mailed out to everybody. They have a lot of programs this summer, a couple of new interesting ones, some teen evening programs and one-day programs. They've got some programs that they've done consistently for years, art camps, basketball, dance, fencing, a lot of good things. So check that out. You can go to the West Windsor Rec website and register for summer programs. Parking Authority. New Jersey Transit will soon be installing 3 more infrared heaters in the platform. At 50 degrees or colder, they're going to turn on between 5:30 and 8:30 a.m. in the morning, so that'll be great for commuters who are out there on cold mornings. As I mentioned last time, I think New Jersey Transit is fast-tracking installing electric car charging spaces at the train station, and they expect, I think they expect to have them in by May, which is very fast. So we'll see if that gets done that quickly. It's been a good winter from a snow perspective, but they've had a lot of ice, had to use a lot of ice melt because of rain, because everything freezes on the platform more quickly than anywhere else, but they're still well under budget for that. And this summer, they're going to be doing some paving, putting a connecting road in between the Vaughan and Alexander lots, and also working on the Wallace Pond, cleaning and landscaping and that kind of thing. And just one other thing, the food truck is scheduled for September 15th, so hope everybody can make it out for that. That's always a fun event.
Okay, September 15th, I'll write that down right now. The Affordable Housing Committee was discussing one of the provisions in the affordable housing ordinance, making affordable housing more affordable. And we are looking at the right way to address this, the right way to phrase how we can help everybody moving into affordable housing with some kind of monetary assistance. We haven't decided what to call it, move-in assistance, rental assistance, but it should apply to both renters and people who buy. Also, as everybody probably knows, we were not able to complete our project of making the hamlet more affordable by replacing the HVAC systems because the people who live there pay their own electricity bills. So we were thinking of a one-time help for people who live in the hamlet to offset the high electricity bills that they have to pay, that they wouldn't have had to pay if our project had been able to go through. So concrete suggestions will be forthcoming in the future. So we're now up to council reports, discussion. There were a couple of items on there. Virginia?
Yes, I'd like to pull the discussion of Parks and Rec. We've got a little bit more information, and we have to do a little bit more research before we discuss it.
Okay, and I have spoken to Sam Surtees about the suggestion I made of the addition to the RP7 district, making it clear that we can have offices on the ground floor, which is not the way it reads now. And he said that he'd like a sense of the council. If the council thinks this is a good idea, it will go to planning board, and the planning board will address it when it addresses a large number of items to make the ordinances consistent with the new housing element. And he hopes to get to that later this year. So do I have a sense of council? Shall we send it to planning board? And Aisha, you had expressed support for this idea.
Sure. I mean, do you want to table this until we have more opinions, or?
No, I mean,
it's
there are
fine.
3 of us, and we send it to the planning board. If they don't like it, they don't do it. I
don't care. It's fine.
I think it's fine.
Okay, so Jean, you and Sam will be getting this. Okay, we'll send it to community development with a suggestion that when the planning board deals with getting its ordinances consistent with its land use element, it make this little bit of flexibility something that's actually written down. Okay? All right. Well, you've already done the land use element.
That was just a modification to the original one. You have to create a whole new.
Well, Sam is optimistic that you will get to that.
We definitely will get to it this year, or I won't be around. Self-imposed deadline.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you'll get to it this year, and so we'll get to this year. Okay, so we know what we have to do. And administration updates?
I have none.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.